Mission Impossible, some of the best action movies ever made, and one of my favourite franchises. Weak plots, a little bit of exposition here and there, and then nothing but pure action and insane stunts pulled off by Tom Cruise. This franchise wouldn't be this big if not for Tom Cruise. The Burj Khalifa, the plane in Rogue Nation, the helicopter in Fallout, the run in Fallout, and Langley in the first Mission Impossible movie. It's the stunts that make Mission Impossible such a special and entertaining franchise. And today, I'll be ranking them. So here we go. These are all just my opinions, so if you don't agree with them, that's fine. And if I sound weird today, that's because I have a cold. At last place, Mission Impossible 2 is, for me, the only bad film in the franchise. The first and second acts of the film are almost unwatchable, with mediocre acting, boring dialogue, and quite an uninteresting story with Ambrose and Naya that we just spend way too much time with. The third act is where the only action is, and yeah, it's bombastic, it's wild, it's fun, but it's also not very good. Ethan Hunt seems unkillable. He's doing side flips in slow motion and killing his enemy with 2 bullets while they fire hundreds at him. There's just way too much slow motion, and while that is John Woo's trademark, and I do like it in some of his movies, he doesn't do it very well here, and it just becomes exhausting to watch after a while. In 6th place, Mission Impossible 3 is pretty good. Philip Seymour Hoffman is one of the best villains in the franchise, and the film is gritty, emotional, well acted, and the story is pretty decent. Where it fails is the action. This film came during the time of the Bourne franchise, which means they went for grittiness, quick cuts, and shaky cam. The Bourne franchise was the only one that did it right, and most of, if not all, others that tried to replicate them failed. Mission Impossible 3 unfortunately falls into that category. All the action is played by way too many cuts, shaky cam, and lens flares on the screen, to the point where 70% of the time you can't really see what's going on. Also, we never learn what the rabbit's foot, the main MacGuffin of the film, is, and that makes it kinda hard to really care. It's a good film that focuses more on Ethan, but it doesn't really hold up against the others. In 5th place, I wasn't impressed by this film much. Sure, the action was fine, but the stunts were underwhelming. The villain, though well acted, wasn't fleshed out nearly enough. But my main problem is the plot. This is Mission Impossible. Ethan Hunt fighting AI doesn't need to be anywhere near 2 hours and 40 minutes long, and yet they drew it out for way too long, to the point where it was starting to get boring. This should be 20 to 30 minutes shorter, and not stretch thin to 2 hours and 40 minutes. They even made it a 2-parter. There's going to be 2 of these. There's barely enough for this single movie, never mind 2 movies. I liked the film, but it was way too unnecessarily long, to the point where it just dragged along, held by its thin as ice plot that they seem to think can be stretched into 2 films. And it's just not enough. In 4th place, okay, I know after Dead Reckoning and this, most people are starting to disagree with me. I don't dislike this film. In fact, I think it's really good. I really enjoy this film, and it is highly rewatchable. The Kremlin scene is perfect, the Burj Khalifa climb and then the chase is amazing. The third act is less exciting but still hilarious and a lot of fun. This movie is a really good action film. So why is it not in my top 3? Because in my opinion, the other films are even better. It's as simple as that. In third place, I rarely see anyone rank the first in their top 3, which surprises me. Maybe it's because the other movies are all big, bombastic action movies, while the first barely has any action. But the thing is, Mission Impossible isn't an action movie. It's a thriller, and an incredibly good one for that matter. The acting is superb, the tension is great, the use of Dutch angles adds to the tension a lot, and the cinematography is beautiful. Sure, the plot is kind of convoluted, but on rewatch it's much clearer and easier to understand. And if you look past the lack of action in an action franchise, you'll find an amazingly well-crafted thriller with great stunts, great cinematography, great acting, and hey, you even get the cool train finale at the end. What more do you want? In second place, this film is, in my opinion, the one Mission Impossible movie that is just perfect spy action film. The opera scene is a standout. The dive is great. The scene where they infiltrate the Prime Minister is brilliant. And on top of all of that, the action is fantastic. It's the one Mission Impossible movie that understood the spy aspect and also the action of the franchise. It may not be my favorite, but it may just be the best Mission Impossible movie. But in first place, Fallout is the perfect action movie. It's tightly written, the acting is great, the story is probably the best of the franchise, as Ethan really faces himself and his past. Solomon Lane is my personal favourite villain of the franchise. Sean Harris is brilliant and menacing in the role, but the action is where this movie surpasses every other movie. It's perfect. The motorcycle chase, the bathroom fight, the rooftop chase, the entire third act. It's all perfect. Now, Fallout may have kind of forgotten about the spy stuff of the franchise, but it makes up for it with some of the best action I have ever seen. And there you have it. That's my personal ranking of the Mission Impossible franchise. Even though I didn't like Dead Reckoning Part 1 as much as I hoped to, I'm still eagerly awaiting Part 2 next year. Next week, though, I'll either be ranking John Wick, or I'll make the beauty of Across the Spiderverse. So stay tuned for that. And hey, if you actually made it to the end, then thanks. Anyway, that's all I got.